If I asked you to think of an 80s TV show that was full of action, fights, explosions, car chases, gunfights, and some of the meanest bad guys that you've ever seen, yet nobody ever dies or gets seriously hurt, what show would come to mind? Of course, The A-Team. Now, The A-Team was an extremely popular show that was on from 1983 to 1987, and it was largely filmed in the streets of Los Angeles. And so today, we're going to begin our journey exploring the A-Team filming locations, and we're going to start with an episode from Season 1, A Small and Deadly War. So strap on your seatbelt, and let's go see what we can find. The episode begins right here on Magnolia Boulevard at Valley Street in Burbank, California. We see Police Inspector Maloney passing by a shopping center that has a Baskin-Robbins in it. And believe it or not, that Baskin-Robbins is still here and still has the same sign all these years later. Maloney continues down the street and the camera pans just a little bit to the right and we see a little bit more of the shopping center. Just a few blocks down the street at Magnolia Boulevard and Uckland Avenue is where he looks in his rearview mirror and he sees that he's getting pulled over. You can see this building on the corner on the right side and also this car wash across the street on the left side. Maloney then turns off of Magnolia and onto Clybourne Avenue, which is back a couple of blocks in the other direction right next to the Baskin-Robbins that he had just passed by. He then pulls his car over in front of this building, which currently, funny enough, has an old police car parked in front of it. So he gets out of his car and he's met by 4 SWAT officers, and we find out that Maloney was planning to turn those officers in because they had been murdering people. And right here in front of this tree is where the police officers were standing. Of course, the tree has gotten a lot bigger, but this tree is how we know where they were standing. They then walk a few feet over to where Maloney's standing and they hand him a stack of pictures, and the pictures are of his family. And they tell him that he better think twice about turning them in. Okay, so there is a lot going on with the locations in this next scene. So after he has the run-in with the SWAT officers, Maloney goes to a bar to have a drink, and while he's in there, Hannibal comes in disguise and eventually asks Maloney if he still wants to hire the A-Team. Now we get a very quick establishing shot of the outside of the bar and a little bit longer establishing shot towards the end of the episode. And in that longer shot, you can see a little bit of the sign and you can make out the word Nova, but pretty much all the other words on the sign are impossible to read. So we spent a lot of time rewinding this scene, pausing it, watching it in slow motion, trying to decipher the words on the sign. Eventually we figured out that it said Sayat Nova Armenian Restaurant. And so we started looking that up and we found that there was a Sayat Nova in Pasadena, but when we went to check it out, it didn't really match up with the restaurant that you see in the episode. The restaurant that you see in this episode is on a narrow street that's one way. It has a lot of tall buildings around it and it looks like it's in the city. The Pasadena location is on a much wider street with traffic flowing in both directions, and it's in more of a suburban area. So we continued to search and we found another Sayat Nova in Chicago. And when we checked this one out on Google Maps, it was a pretty close match to the restaurant that you see in this episode. It's on a narrow one-way street, it's got a lot of tall buildings around it, it appears to be in the city. However, the actual Sayat Nova building did not match with the restaurant in this episode. And I'm pretty sure the restaurant in this episode, the building next door is a parking garage. So if this is the right location, that parking garage has since been torn down and replaced with another building. But after studying this scene and studying this location, I'm about 95% sure that it was the Chicago location that they used in this episode. They've just since remodeled all of these buildings, and this was probably just stock footage that they had of cars driving by this building. I'm actually pretty sure they used this same footage in an episode of Columbo. Now, the interiors of the restaurant, that's in a completely different location. Now this right here is where they filmed the interiors of the bar. However, it did have a different name back then. And actually in the episode, when they walk out of the bar, you can see a sign behind them that says Des Reagan's Irish Pub. And that was actually the real name of this bar at the time. Now I've come here a few different times trying to check it out. Every time I've come here, it's been during the business hours that they have posted on their website. But every time that I've come here, it's been closed. So I decided to do a little bit more research, and according to what I found online, apparently this bar shut down in 2020 at the beginning of the pandemic, and then it just never reopened. But what's strange is all of the exterior lights are on, there's mail sticking out of the mailbox. I went around to the back of the building, and there's a bar stool next to the door, like where the door guy would be sitting. So it looks like a functioning business, but apparently it hasn't been open in the last 4 years, and the rumors online is that it's never going to reopen. Now, I was able to find some pictures online of what it looks like inside, and it still looks pretty similar to how it did in the A-Team. Now, there is one thing that I can show you on the outside of the building. When Hannibal walks into the bar, he opens the door, and behind him you can see some glass bricks. And if we look right here in the front of the building, just to the right of the front door, these are the very same glass bricks that you see behind Hannibal. Apparently, this was a pretty happening place to go to watch live music, so hopefully it will eventually reopen, and then A-Team fans will be able to come here, have a drink, and check out the bar that was used in this episode. Face and Amy head over to the police station, disguised as exterminators, so they can sneak into the locker room and sew buttons onto their uniforms that have tiny microphones hidden inside. Now, I'm bummed to say that I wasn't able to find the building that's used for the police station. There just wasn't enough clues. The building looked familiar to me, and I felt like I knew the area, but I just couldn't find the building. Now, once they get those microphones sewn onto the uniform, they meet back up with the rest of the A-Team, who's parked in the van across the street from some apartment buildings. Now, those apartment buildings are located right here at 4200 Via Dulce in Marina del Rey, California. Now, these apartments have had a makeover, but there's still some stuff you can match up, starting with the stairs with the lamppost on either side. Now, like I said, they've been remodeled, but you can see right here the stairs with lamps on either side. And then if you look at the placement of windows and balconies, you'll see we have big square windows, and you've got a set of windows, balcony, balcony, another set of windows, and balcony. Here we've got big square windows that have been changed, but you've got a set of windows, balcony, balcony, set of windows, balcony. And then last but not least, if you look at the railings on the balconies, those are still exactly the same. So they're sitting in the van discussing what they're going to do, and they decide that they're going to need Murdoch's help on this one, and it's time to go get him out of the hospital. So right now we're in West LA, and we're headed over to the old VA hospital that's off of Sepulveda and Wilshire, because it's my belief that the building that they use for the psychiatric ward that they get Murdoch from is at this facility. Now, the only problem is they've torn some buildings down, they've built some new buildings. I looked on Google Maps, and the building was there, or at least the building that I think it is, was there, but the picture is a year old. And in that picture, there's some construction stuff going on right around that building. So I'm a little nervous. I think it might be this building, and if it is, that's not good, because it's all construction fences. Yeah, it's this building. All right, so good news and bad news. The bad news is the building is completely gated off and we can't get that same shot that we see in the show. The good news is it looks like they're not tearing it down. They're just renovating it, making it look nice. So hopefully in the future we can come back here and we'll be able to get that same shot that we see on the show. I can show you what it looks like on Google Maps. Can't get the exact same shot, but pretty close. But yeah, right here on the other side of this fence, that is the building that was used for Murdoch's psychiatric hospital, where the A-Team goes to get Murdoch. This right here is pretty close to the shot that we get in this episode. You can see the buildings are still the same. They're just renovating them and making them look nice. That tree's gone, but the structures are still the same, luckily. When they're on their way to stop the hit on Delgado, we see the van pass by this building at 950 Cahuenga Boulevard in Hollywood. Now they pass by the building pretty quick, but if you pause the scene, you can see that the building still looks pretty similar to how it did in 1983. It even has the same lamppost out front. They continue on and you see the building on the corner, and then eventually you see the self-storage building, which is still there, but yep, now blocked by trees. We see Mr. Delgado's shop, and he's out front bringing in the trash cans. The camera then pans over to the right, and we see the A-Team van come whipping around the corner and speeding down the street. And as you can see, that building on the corner has since been torn down and replaced with a school. The van continues down the street and then pulls into this driveway right here. They get out and approach Mr. Delgado and tell him a bunch of lies about how they're trying to catch some robbers that have been working the area and they need his help. And since he's such a good citizen, he agrees to help them, and this gives Hannibal an excuse to dress up. We once again see the shop, and Mr. Delgado is approaching it to open up the gates. The camera then zooms out, and we see that one of the SWAT officers is already in sniper mode, ready to take out Mr. Delgado. Now, he would have been on the second story of that building that was torn down and replaced with the school, but this is pretty much the shot that you would have got from that second story. He takes his shot, and Mr. Delgado falls down to the floor. The SWAT team guys then take off, and all of these buildings have been torn down. This is where the school now is. They chase him right towards Mr. Delgado's shop and force him up onto the sidewalk, where they end up crashing. They try and run away, but Mr. Delgado jumps up, and it turns out that it's, of course, Hannibal. They hold the two SWAT guys at gunpoint and tell them they know what they're up to and they need to turn themselves in. The A-Team then gets in their van and drives off this way down the alley, and the two SWAT guys stand right here completely dumbfounded, trying to figure out what the heck is going on. So after talking to him on the phone, Hannibal decides that he wants to mess with Captain Stark just a little bit more, and so he's going to send him some flowers. And so they stop at a flower shop that was inside of this building, located at 564 Washington Boulevard in Marina del Rey, California. This is actually right around the corner from those apartments that they were parked in front of a little bit earlier in the episode. Now, as you can probably tell, all of the buildings in this shopping center have been remodeled and nothing looks the same, but this is the door that the lady comes walking out of. She then walks through the parking lot and you can see this lamppost. You then see the A-Team van coming down the street, and it parks right here next to this driveway. And you can see those houses and the apartment building across the street. Now, the main house that you can see is, of course, now completely covered by trees and bushes, and the apartment building next door is now partially covered, but you can still tell that this is the right building. So I'm currently sitting in the exact spot where the A-Team van was. This is the view that BA would have had of Murdoch right before he goes into the flower shop. There's a really quick shot of this building at 634 South Spring Street in downtown Los Angeles. It's used as an establishing shot when BA's altering the headlights on the van. You can actually see this tree in the show that's now blocking the front of the building, and it looks like it had just been planted at that time. After meeting her in the parking lot of the police station, Collins brings Amy to the Sunset Lodge Motel, where the A-Team is waiting inside for him. Of course, the entire thing was a setup. And on the corner of Sunset Boulevard and Las Palmas Avenue, this was the Sunset Lodge Motel. And then for whatever reason, the next part of this episode takes place inside of Six Flags Magic Mountain in Valencia, California. So let's go inside. Now, everything for the A-Team was filmed in the back of the park, pretty much between Colossus and the Gold Rusher. The first shot inside the park is of the old Crazy Barrel ride, which used to be located right here where Crazanity now is. You can still tell where the entrance used to be. Now, the crazy thing is if you look at this area on Google Maps, it still has the gazebo from the Crazy Barrels. That's how long it's been since they've updated it on Google. The camera then pans to the left and we see a very different Six Flags Magic Mountain from the one that we know today. It then stops at the games area, and I didn't realize how much this area has changed since then. We then get a really quick shot of Freefall, which I really miss, and that ride used to be located over here just beside Tidal Wave. The SWAT guy is hiding at the far end of the building. The camera then pans to the left, and Hannibal is hiding at the very end at the last pillar, pretending to be one of the statues. He was standing right here in this spot. So they head inside to the game booth, not realizing that they're about to be ambushed. Now keep your eye on Mr. T. Look at his head. I love that. Notice the monorail track right behind Face? Now on the other side of this fence, right behind Crazanity, on that grassy hill, that's where Face knocks out Collins. Now if we look right over here, this is the last remaining piece of the old monorail track, just hidden in the bushes back here. You can also see the monorail track when Murdoch tackles the SWAT team guy that he's chasing over at the Grand Prix ride, which used to be located in this area. And the way that you can tell is by the observation tower up there on the hill. The ride where Hannibal is having his battle that he eventually ends up dangling from was called Eagle's Flight. And the lower station used to be located right here, somewhere in between Food Etc. and the Magic Moments Theater. As he's jumping in his car to get the heck out of here, behind him you can see the Scrambler, which is still here. However, I'm not sure if they're just repairing it or if they're about to get rid of it. I think they're just repairing it. I hope. Now the spot where BA jumps on the hood of the car, that was on the backside of Colossus. You can kind of see a little bit of Colossus right there. So basically where Goliath now is, that's where BA jumps on the hood of the car. Can't see the exact spot anymore, but it was right down here. See that hill right there for Colossus? You can see that in the shot. So it was right down here in this area. The A-team heads to the Irish pub to say farewell to Maloney and give him some of his money back. They hear that the military police are on their way, so now they gotta get out of there as fast as they can. We then see the A-team come whipping out of the back parking lot of the bar, and the way that we know where this takes place is by a very distinct roof line that you can see. Of course, now that roof line is completely blocked by these trees, but if I step over just a little bit, you can kind of see it. But if I come around to the front of the building, now you can recognize that roof line. And the parking lot that I'm currently standing in is the dairy from Say Anything. Definitely a lot of stuff filmed around here in the 80s. Now the actual bar that they were just inside of is down the alley that way on the next block, but I guess the directors like the look of this block better. And this is actually where Maloney gets pulled over by the SWAT officers in the beginning of the episode. Stop! This is what you get when you mess with the A-team. Well, that's gonna do it for my first A-team video. Definitely not gonna be my last though, because there's still so many episodes to explore. So I hope you liked this video. As always, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. I pity the poor fool that don't subscribe to this channel.